This is the first tutorial that aims to offer support for starting to work with NVivo 12. We will cover how to start an NVivo project and how to import files. We will look at how to create externals, which you might want to use for data that you cannot import into NVivo. And finally, we look at how to organize files into folders. When you open NVivo, this mask appears. There won't be any recent projects on the left, so you can either click on blank project or on sample project. In a second we will click on blank project and continue there, but I quickly wanted to say that I think the sample project is very useful for playing around with some of the NVivo features, but please do not take it as an example of how your project should or will look like. I will cover this in more detail in a future video. So I have clicked on blank project and then this window appears. And as you can see, I called this example project Research Tales. I added a brief description and selected where I want the project to be saved. But you don't have to worry about this. You can change what you type in here later. You then just need to click on File in the top left corner and go to Project Properties. As you can see, I called the new project Research Tales. I added a brief description and I selected where I want the project to be saved. I also recommend you to tick this box about the project event log. This will help you to keep track of your project, and I will say more about that in a future video. Then we just click on OK. And then we can see the home screen of our empty NVivo project. On the top you have what I call the activity menu, and on the left you can see key categories that we will all cover in the NVivo basics tutorials. And when we click on Files under Data, we will see that there are no items listed, and the same is the case for externals, also found under Data, because we just created the project, so it is empty. To import a file, we click on Import in the Activity menu, and you will see that there are many different options that appear. In this tutorial, I focus on importing files because I think this will help many of you to get started, but I plan to do some future videos about some of the other options, so please leave me a comment if you're particularly interested in one or more of these. And after you clicked on Files, this window will appear. And then you can select the file that you want to import. I use a Word document here, and then we click on Open. Then this window appears where you can still edit your selection, and you can also tick this box for creating a case. I will cover cases and case classifications in future tutorials. I don't think you need to worry about this now because you can always create cases after you imported files. For now, we just click on Import. Now we are in the document properties. In the general tab you can edit the name and you can add a description. You see that there is another tab called attribute values. This is relevant for file classification, which I will cover in a separate video. You can ignore this for now, as you can create these classifications also after you imported files and then assign the files later. I have just added some information here, and then we click on OK. And now you can see that our example focus group is listed under Files. For importing files, you do not need to go via the Import tab in the Activity menu. You can also just right-click on Files and select Import Files. And you can see that we get to exactly the same window. For this second example, I now select a PDF document and click on Open. And here we again just click Import. And again, we are now in the PDF properties and can edit the name and description and then click on OK. And you can see that now both the Word document and the PDF document are listed under Files. To open one of those files, you double click on it or you right click on it and then select the option Open Document. When you right click on the item and select Document Properties, you will get here and you can edit the name and the description. You may be wondering, what are externals and why should I use them? I would say that it mainly depends on your data, whether they are relevant for you or not. For example, in the case of online videos or audios, you might not be able to download them. And if you cannot download them, you cannot import them into NVivo as files. Externals then give you the option to link your project to the data and create documents with key information that you can then also code. I heard some people also use externals for storing information about archival data, which is particularly relevant if this data is not available in a digital format. Another option for using externals is for web pages, which is something that I do very frequently, and I will show you on the next slide an example of how to do this. But also, if you use externals for other types of data, the steps are basically the same. Before we move on, I quickly wanted to say that it is still worth considering if you have other potentially better options than externals. So for example, in the case of online videos or audios, you might be able to get transcriptions that you could then upload into NVivo as files. In the case of web pages, you could save them as a PDF document and import them. Or NVivo also has a feature which is called encapture that I will cover in a future video. This is the website that I picked as an example. It's the web page of a community center that, for example, summarizes here the courses and activities and offers a list of what they have on offer. The first option that we have for creating an external is to right-click on externals and then select new external. The second option is to just right-click in the externals window. By the way, this also works for files, and then select new external. And then this window appears that you can fill, and just in the case of files, you can edit all the text that you type in later. And also, as in the case of files, the attribute values tab relates to file classification, which will be covered in a future video and which you can ignore for now. And we then click on the external tab. And here you can then pick the type of link. In our case, it's a web link. And underneath, you can then type in the web link. And you can then also specify the content, which in our case for the web link is not so relevant. Then we click on OK. And now you have a document under externals, which automatically opens. And the idea is that you then write down relevant information. In this example, I started writing down the activities and classes that were listed on the website, and I can then later code this document. When you click on Edit, you see this menu that enables you to change the text style, and this really just looks like Microsoft Word, and it also works like Microsoft Word. As you can see, I just changed the headings here. And if you find this text a bit too small, you can obviously increase the font size using the menu. NVivo also has an option to edit the paragraph style, which I show in a separate video and which can be quite handy because then you don't need to edit the settings in every single document. But another very quick option that you have is to just increase the zoom, which you can see on the bottom right is at the moment at 100%. And now it is at 120%. And you can also see that only this window here changed. When we now go to the externals folder under data, we can see that there is one item listed. And if we then right click on the item and select external properties, and there we can again edit the name, description and so on, and you also can edit what you entered in the external tab. To open the external, you either double click on the item or you right click and select open external. You still then need to click on click to edit, otherwise you can just highlight the text but not edit the text. And by the way, if you quickly want to access the link, the web link, then you can click on open external file on the top left. And there is, as you can see, also another option here in the top menu to edit the zoom. We have so far only imported 2 files and we created one external, but when you import more data, it is a good idea to create different folders for your data. So here is how to do that. We just right click on Files and click on New Folder. This brings us here, and I just call the new folder focus group and edit a brief description, but again here we can change the name and description later. We click on OK, and here is now the new folder. And when we right click on the folder and select folder properties, we can just edit what we typed in before. To move a file into the folder, you click on the file and you drag and drop it into the folder. And now you can see that the item is in the focus group folder. The second brief example, we again right click on Files and select New Folder. And I call the new folder Background Documents and click OK. And you can see the folder is there under Files. And again, I click on the PDF document and drag it into the new folder. And we can see that the document is now in the Background Documents folder. I have 3 more things to show you. The first one is that you are actually able to create a folder within a folder, so that might be relevant if you have different types of interviews, let's say, and you then create different subfolders for different types of interviews. But there is no need to have an elaborated system of folders. It just really needs to work for you and your project. The second point is that you are also able to directly import files into folders, which might be useful if you do have a lot of material but then want to add some more items. And finally, you can also create folders for items in externals, and this works in exactly the same way as for files. I hope you found this video useful. Let me know if you have any questions about importing files or managing file folders. Check out my YouTube channel for more material on working with NVivo 12, and take a look at my website. You'll be able to download my tutorial slides from there.